What's up, everyone? These are my Week 9 NFL takeaways and reactions. Last week, I went 11-4 on my predictions, putting my current record at 90-48. And we started this week with Thursday Night Football with the Jets beating the Texans, and this was definitely a surprise. I expected the Texans to win, but the Jets were able to surprise a lot of people, I presume, by winning this game. And, this is a game that they needed to win to hang on to their season, because 3-6 is a lot better than 2-7. And just like that, they're just barely still alive for the NFL playoffs. As for the Texans, to be honest, they're kind of having an off year compared to last year. They also don't have Nico Collins. Stephon Diggs is going to be out for the rest of the year. And CJ Stroud just hasn't been playing up to his rookie self. And a loss like this is just it just shows that this team isn't as good as they were last season. They'll make the playoffs, but I don't really think they'll do much when they get there. Our next game, we got the Panthers beating the Saints 23-22 to get their second victory of the year. And, it always feels good to be a division rival, and that's exactly what the Panthers did. And it was not a great game by the Panthers, but you'll take wins like this when you can get them when you're a rebuilding team. You can't be too upset with a victory over a division rival, no matter, the circumstance. And as for the Saints, they've just looked horrible since their 2-0 start. They've lost 7 in a row, and they actually fired their head coach yesterday, which I guess is one good thing to come out of this, because I always thought Dennis Allen was not a good head coach. So I guess we'll just have to see how they play without Dennis Allen. But the reality is just this team, they're just injured, and they just don't want to rebuild, even though that's what they should be doing right now. Moving on, we got another division game. We got the Commanders beating the Giants 27-22. And the Commanders, it wasn't pretty, but they took care of a lesser opponent, and the Giants are most definitely a lesser opponent. And, that's really all you can take away from this. Jayden Daniels, he was Jayden Daniels. The defense is a little concerning still, but it's been a concern all year. But it's definitely not a concern that this team is 7-2 with a rookie quarterback, and they're outperforming everyone's expectations. So you just have to tip your hat to the Commanders on the success they've had so far this season. As for the Giants, outside of Malik Nabers, there's really no one on this offense, and their defense couldn't really stop Jayden Daniels, which I guess is understandable, but this is one of those games where you'd think with a slightly better offense they'd win, and right now the Giants have the worst record in the NFC. Our next game, we got the Bills beating the Dolphins 30-27. And the Bills, definitely some concerns with their defense, but a win's a win. They're 7-2, and they're also outperforming expectations. People thought the Bills were going to suck or miss the playoffs or something like that, but they will most definitely make the playoffs, and they will probably lock up their division by the end of November, if we're being honest. And, they just took care of an inferior opponent, and that's all you can really ask for. As for the Dolphins, you've got Tua back and the offense looks a little better, but that doesn't fix everything. There's still the problem with their defense, and their defense can't do anything. And, you'll have a flash here and there, but nothing too crazy. And honestly, this team's done. I don't see them turning their season around, making the playoffs or anything like that. They're on a 3-game losing streak. Tua is 0-2 since his return from week 2. And, Dolphins are done. Next game, we got the Chargers beating the Browns 27-10. And this was probably the best game the Chargers have played all season. They looked really good in this game. Justin Herbert looked like his old self. You had Quentin Johnson having a really good game. J.K. Dobbins had a really good game. The defense was, pretty good as well. And, you know, this is the team that can make the playoffs and, you know, go on a run. You know, if the Chargers can get this Chargers every single week, they can be a dangerous team heading into January, assuming they make the playoffs, which they probably will. And as for the Browns, I mean, I didn't expect you guys to win this game. I did think it would be closer, but, you know, the reality is you're playing against a really good Chargers team. And the Browns, as we've seen this year, are not a good team. Even with Jameis, they're still not a good team, and they're done. Moving on, we got the Titans beating the Patriots 20-17. And Titans got their second win of the season against an AFC East opponent. Ironically, their first win was against the Dolphins. And, I mean, you know, like I said with the Panthers, you know, this win doesn't really do a whole lot for them, but it's never too shabby to get a victory when you're a rebuilding team, because you don't get them as much as other teams. So anytime you do get them, you just appreciate them a little more. As for the Patriots, I mean, I did expect them to win this game. They didn't, which I guess kind of makes sense because Drake May is a rookie quarterback going against a actually pretty good defense in the Titans. People don't realize that, but they are. And, you know, I guess this is just what happens when rookie quarterbacks go up against good defenses, you know, because they haven't been in the league for as long. And I still like what I see from him. I mean, he was able to bring this game to overtime to give the Patriots a fighting chance, but they just couldn't get it done. Moving on, we got the Falcons beating the Cowboys 27-21. And, I mean, there's not a whole lot of takeaways here. I mean, the better team won. And usually when the better team wins, there's nothing too crazy can be taken away from that game. This is about what I expected. Falcons offense still looks pretty good. Their defense able to really cause Dak some issues when the game was still in reach. And I mean, yeah, the Falcons are a good team and the Cowboys are not a good team. And, you know, as for the Cowboys, speaking of them, you know, I don't know what to say. This team has talent, but they just don't have desire. They're playing like they know Mike McCarthy's going to get fired, which he probably will at the end of the season, assuming Jerry Jones doesn't do something crazy. But, you know, you can just see the players just playing with such little desire. And, you know, it's just they're fighting an uphill battle here with the way their players are playing and all that, and they're done. And I wish Dak the best in his recovery. Our next game, we got the Bengals crushing the Raiders 41-24. And, you know, this is a Bengals team where you can really get behind. This is the team that can make a run in the playoffs. I said the same thing for the Chargers because they're kind of in the similar situation to them. But if we can get this Bengals team from week to week, like, they can really put on a show. And we've seen that. They can put on a show in the regular season, playoff time. I mean, I still have concerns about their defense, but their offense is most definitely a fun unit to watch, and they took care of business against a bad Raiders team. And, I mean, as for the Raiders, I mean, they're done. Honestly, I think Antonio Pierce should be fired. I don't think he's that good of a head coach. And I just, you know, the Raiders don't really have anyone. They have Brock Bowers, and he's really good. But outside of him, I guess they have Max Crosby on the defensive side. But, I mean, you know, you just don't have a lot of talent on this team. And the players don't seem very motivated either. All right, our next game, we got the Ravens blowing out the Broncos 41-10. And this is just a pissed off Ravens team. They lost last week to an inferior Browns team, and they took out all their frustrations this week and just dominated an actual decent opponent for once. And it's good to see him do this from, the Ravens' perspective, just because it shows that they can take care of teams that are solid. So I can't be too mad about them. And I mean, as for the Broncos, I mean, I don't know what happened here. I mean, I understand the defense struggling. The Ravens have one of the best offenses in the NFL, but our offense shouldn't have struggled as much as they did. I mean, the Ravens defense, I mean, they didn't just turn back into the 2000 Ravens overnight, but the Broncos made it look like they did, only scoring 10 points against this team. And it's just frustrating. I don't know what to say about the Broncos, to be honest. All right, our first 4 o'clock game we'll talk about is the Cardinals beating the Bears 29-9. And the Cardinals have been a very fun surprise this year. They're 5-4, and that's a lot better than I thought they would be. I did not expect them to have a winning record. It's 9 games in the season, but they do. And I mean, it's just they're a gritty team. They're playing with heart. And when you play with heart, even if the talent isn't there, because it really isn't, outside of a few key positions, you can win some games, and that's what they've been doing. And they could make the playoffs, and they'll be a tough out. As for the Bears, I mean, if this game is any indication, I think it should be that their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, should be fired, and that their head coach, Matt Eberflus, should be fired, because this is 2 weeks in a row where they lost in embarrassing fashion. I don't really see this team going anywhere until they fire those guys. Our next game, we got the Eagles beating the Jags 28-23. And I honestly, the Eagles won, but this just really is a concerning way to win a game. They were up 22-0 against a very bad Jags team, and they almost lost that game. And, a win's a win. No, don't get me wrong. But, you'd like to see this team win by more than 5 points against a Jags team that's probably going to be picking in the top 10 at least. And, I mean, this is one of those games where I feel like Nick Sirianni, he almost cost his team the game. And I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to get away with this in January when they're playing better teams. And as for the Jags, I mean, I don't really know what to say here. I mean, I guess props to them for almost making a comeback, but that last play where Dearness Johnson was the number 1 read and Trevor Lawrence overthrew him, that just shows the incompetence of the Jags right now, and Doug Peterson's got to go. Next game we got is the Rams beating the Seahawks 26-20, and this one was a very fun game. You had the Rams get a pick 6 with a tie game in the fourth quarter to put them up by 7, only for the Seahawks to eventually score a touchdown to force overtime. And then the Rams ended up winning after that. So definitely just some back and forthness from both those teams. And that pick 6 essentially won the Rams the game. And honestly, the Rams, they look a lot better with their starters. And they have all their starters back, their key starters back. And they're a completely different team when they're healthy. And they're going to be a very dangerous team moving forward. And as for the Seahawks, I mean, this was one of those games where I feel like you needed to win to really stay alive in the playoff push, but they didn't. And, even if they do, it's like the Seahawks, I feel like they can't beat anyone who's, semi-decent, and that's definitely not going to cut it if they want to be a playoff contender this season. Moving on, we got another division rivalry. We have a lot of them this week. We have the Lions beating the Packers 24-14, and the Lions, I mean, their defense played phenomenal. And that's been the story of the Lions. They just haven't been playing, not because they are playing bad, it's just because they genuinely just don't have to play that good on offense. They can rely on defense and, special teams and things like that to win them games. And that's the thing that's really scary about this team. The fact that they're not even putting up as many, yards as they usually do just shows how good this team is, because they're still 7-1 and they're not even playing close to their potential. Not because they're playing bad, but just because they just don't have to. And yeah, the Lions are the best team in the NFL. And as for the Packers, I mean, this is one of those games where I feel like if Jordan Love played a little bit safer, they would have had a chance to win. Because Jordan Love and his interceptions have been a big problem this season, and that could hinder them moving forward. Our Sunday night game, we have the Vikings beating the Colts 21-13. And the Vikings, they won, and they got off to a pretty bad start. They threw a pick six, they fumbled for 6, and the Colts were up 7-0 going into halftime, and their offense just looked completely flat, and their kicker missed a couple of costly field goals too. But the second half was a completely different story. They scored 21 points. And the Colts, they didn't allow the Colts to score a single offensive touchdown in the game either. They only scored 6 points in the second half, and they were both field goals. So they definitely played better in the second half, and that's the half that matters more. So credit to the Vikings for taking care of an inferior opponent. And as for the Colts, I mean, this is one of those games where I feel like they could have won, and they just didn't take care of business. Joe Flacco played pretty bad, and the Colts don't look that good this year. Ending the week, we got the Chiefs beating the Bucs 30-24. Chiefs remain undefeated, and this game just proves that they know how to do it when the game's on the line. You had Patrick Mahomes linking up with Travis Kelce at the end of the game a couple of times to really get the drive moving, and they just did what they had to do, and they were able to get the coin toss in overtime. And it wasn't pretty that it had to go to overtime because their defense kind of sold on the last drive of regulation, but they still won the game. And this is one of those things where it's like they're still winning despite not playing as good as they could be. And I mean, that's kind of like the Lions. It's like, if this team can play more decently, imagine how much better they could be. And as for the Bucs, I mean, I don't know what to say here. You guys had a golden opportunity to hand the Chiefs their first loss, and you guys just sold big time. And I mean, this just shows why Todd Bowles is not a good head coach. He can't really take care of business consistently. And that's such a problem as a head coach. You need to make sure your team is playing consistently well, and he hasn't done that. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. On Thursday, I'll have my Week 10 NFL predictions. And until then, have a good day, and I'll see you there.